Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to today's bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus upload, shall we? We're going to start the paranormal side out with a Dogman encounter from Hartford County, Maryland. On Monday, October 18th of 2021, midday, I took my 7 and 2.5-year-old sons to a state park about 1.5 miles up the road from our house. Rocks State Park, Hidden Valley area. The park is small, 4 parking spots, and a 1/2 mile trail that follows the creek. The trail ends at a fork in the creek with a beachhead about 20 feet long. 6 people would definitely be a crowd. So both of my sons are familiar with the park, as it's in rotation to the 3 parks we choose to go on our little hikes once a week. The trail is moderate with some inclines, natural obstacles, and occasional narrowing due to lack of maintenance. My eldest son is comfortable being 30 to 50 feet ahead of me while I keep pace with my youngest. Nothing's out of the ordinary, it's just a normal hike. My eldest reaches the beachhead 15 to 20 seconds before we do. We approach the creek beach, and my youngest is on my left, starting to mess with rocks and throw them into the creek. My oldest is 10 to 15 feet to my right, messing around, throwing rocks into the water as well. I bend down to cuff my pant leg, and I hear a blood-curdling scream from my eldest. I look up at him, and he is screaming, falling backwards, feverishly kicking his legs. I follow his line of sight across the creek. Perched on a flat rock is an animal I cannot understand. It was no more than 20-25 feet away, and its dimensions seemed so large. It looked as if it could leap that creek in one stride. A barrel chest with clearly defined pectoral muscles, shoulders, and biceps, no different than a man's, just a lot larger. Bulging eyes and a stubby snout like a hyena. It looked as if it was in a sprinter's starting stance, not an animal on all fours. Its thighs and hind end were noticeably large. The mass of this animal was just unnatural. The ears faced forward with hair tufts on the side and tops of its head. The face looked as if it was on high alert, similar to when your dog has quick head movements because you're going to throw its ball. It kept switching between my son screaming, falling backwards into the trail, running away, and me screaming, picking up my other son. As I'm frantically trying to get between it and my first son, it almost looks as if it was in a lunging position, that or backing up. My perception was head-on before turning into the trail. I get to him, and we're out of direct sight. I yell at my first son to run. The weirdest thing would happen. The 7-year-old would start sprinting and crying, and after 30 feet, he would turn around, almost in a complete daze, not understanding what was happening. Then I'd have to yell to him for him to keep running. He would run, cry, stop, dazed. This happened 3 times. I still don't understand how shock or fear could do that. Thankfully, the animal did not follow us down that trail. The thoughts going through my head I would not wish on my enemies. It was the only time in my life where I knew I could not protect my children. The buck knife on my hip was no better than a pillow. The moment I told my 7-year-old that he may have to take his younger brother's hand and get back to the car as fast as possible has left a scar deeper in my mind than this unexplainable animal. Even though there is no mistaking what I witnessed, it doesn't matter. Trying to explain this to anyone is pointless. I like to think I am considerably self-aware. I can't understand why my mind is forcing itself to debunk what I saw. I was undoubtedly afraid, but my focus was crystal clear. Kids safe at all costs. I was laser focused on my surroundings and what was in it. None of my emotions distorted my vision or made me misinterpret my surroundings. That is horrifying. I cannot even imagine what that parent was going through. I am inviting that person to come onto the show to share their encounter so we can hear what they went through. And I also feel like it could help them sharing and getting some positive feedback from you guys. So hopefully they agree to come on. Today's second experience on the paranormal side is a legend that is known throughout Tennessee and most of the world. This legend is the, I guess, kind of base on what the Blair Witch Project was. And yeah, I'm referring to the Bell Witch of Tennessee. I lived in Adams, Tennessee growing up from the ages of 14 to 18, 2004 to 2008. A couple of weeks after my family and I had moved there, something unexpected happened. I was mowing on my dad's tractor with a big 8-foot wide back-end mower. I was going down the hill when my horizon line violently was thrown around as the tractor's tires hit something. I disengaged the mower, pulled the tractor around at the base of the hill I had just gone down. My blood went cold as I looked up through the swath I had just cut. Like a buzzer going down the middle of someone's head, making a lane in the grass. In that lane were 4 Native American burial graves. My parents started reaching out to anyone who might be able to help us identify the graves. Anthropologists, historians, accredited people, etc. Those people unanimously agreed that these 4 graves were from the Trail of Tears. They corroborated this from what I remember because of how the graves were laid, very, very shallow, with a giant slab of stone where the gravestone would be. The fact that they were interned on a hillside to keep the water from sinking in and raising the bodies, since they had to bury them so quickly, and many other reasons. I consider myself a very logically driven and rationally minded person. Basically, I let my empirical senses try to explain something before I open myself to other possibilities. Yet, there were things that happened to me and my whole family that we weren't able to rationalize with the scientific mindset or anything logical. The first event, the activity in our house, started shortly after the mowing incident. We heard heavy knocking and pounding on the brick outer wall of the house. Encircling the house, no matter where you were in the house, you could hear the knocking. Some nights I would hear running footsteps accompanied the pounding. This activity happened nearly every night. As the nights passed, I started feeling a heavy presence in my room, a suffocating one, like a heavy weight sitting on my solar plexus constantly. Whatever was happening decided to latch onto me. The second event, things continued to escalate. One night I was letting my golden retriever outside. We had a ranch-styled house overlooking the Red River. The door we were exiting was on the back side of the house facing the river. As I open the door, I start hearing faint whispering, something akin to leaves being blown, scratching across the ground. I looked up at the trees to see if the wind was blowing. Everything was perfectly still. It was fall in Tennessee, so tons of leaves on the ground. They weren't moving as well. The scratchy, blowing leaf noise continued, but as it continued, it grew closer and louder. It sounded like a language of some sort. Like, how do you imagine an incantation or something nefarious in the tone of the sound? I looked down at my golden retriever. All of the hair on her back was standing up, and she was snarling like a rabid wolf. Yet not barking, just kind of frozen in a fear response. I started getting extremely nauseous, and I could smell sulfur. I was completely frozen when my dog launched herself through the door's threshold and started gnashing her teeth, midair, snarling and chomping. The voices were now coming from directly in front of me. I could hear them as if someone was standing there a foot or two away. I grabbed my dog midair and pulled her inside quickly, slamming the door and threw the deadbolt in place. The door and frame shook violently as a vicious pounding started hammering on the threshold. I ran with my dog to the center of the house, flipping on every light along the way. We sat there alone all night until the sun came up. Ginger, my golden retriever, laid across my lap the entire night, pressing into me while she whimpered for hours. All I could do was pet her to try to calm her down, which also helped me calm down and regulate. This was impossible, though, the entire night until sunrise. The back door was thumping. The third event happened when I was coming home from football practice. I had all of my gear in a gym bag on my left shoulder. This is important because of how I entered the house. As I closed the door behind me, I began setting down my gear bag from the left side, which caused me to look and turn right. When you first walked in was our library, where we had a leather couch, chair, piano, bookshelves, and a wooden rocking chair. There was something sitting in the rocking chair. My peripheral vision caught it first. The chair was going back and forth. As my vision centered on the chair, there was a humanoid-looking shape sitting there, head glancing downward at the book it had in its hand. Long black hair drawn over its head and completely void of light. To picture what I saw, imagine a silhouette of a person, but rather a void of light. The light coming in around the edges of it seemed to be eaten up by the presence/void as the light spilled over the contoured edges of this humanoid shape, like how black holes are visualized almost exactly. It felt like I had jumped off a bridge into icy cold water. I blasted myself backwards against the door, screaming, and I fell down. As I was falling, I saw the void blur suddenly as it shot across the walls of the house and out through the huge bay window overlooking the river. My golden retriever was in the next room, and she sprinted to chase the shadow across the walls, barking and clawing at the walls. After it left through the window, my dog came to me and laid on my lap until my parents got home. The fourth event, I was fishing with my cousin Jack on the river by our house. We were right on the bend of the river, so the moon would be shining on both sides of the river, racing out of two lanes, like a 90-degree angle from the house. Super beautiful when you weren't on the edge. The reason I bring this up, there was a lot of light on the river that evening. Jack was about 10 or so at the time. He reached up and tapped me. "Does that lady need help?" I looked where he was pointing, and there was a pale lady, dressed in white clothes, going back and forth picking up stones just to the left of us across the river. I had seen her many times before around the property, and whenever I would get close, she would disappear behind a tree or something similar would happen. Knowing this, I told Jack as calmly as I could that it was time for dinner and he needed to go up to my mom immediately, in an attempt not to scare him. When I walked him up and made sure he was on his way, I looked back over and she was gone, but I could hear splashing in the water below. The fifth event, myself, my dad, his friends, and some other family members were staked out along the river bend on the gravel bar beneath the rise to our home. Nothing out of the ordinary at first. It was 4th of July, and we were actually having a good time for a change. We were all spread out about 15 yards from each other. Each man had a low-end gas Coleman lantern. As the sun was setting, my dad looked over at me like something was bugging him. He told me later he felt like someone had just thrown a bucket of ice water over him before it began. The sun had just gone down when this happened. In unison, all the lanterns were cranked up to full blast, then just as quickly became barely a flame. Then the flames roared to life again, down to barely flame, roared to life. Then they went completely out. Right as the flames went out, we heard the most God-forsaken scream by a woman across the river. Whatever it was kept on screaming despite our best attempts to call out to help. As her screams reached a crescendo, it sounded like what I could only imagine a person's throat being cut interrupted her scream. The sound of dead weight fall of a human body tumbled down the hillside across from us and splashed violently into the water. At this point, all of the guys had their flashlights out. That's when something started swimming and splashing around the water on both sides of the river bend. The splashing receded toward the opposite gravel bar, and whatever it was got out and started pacing back and forth across the rocks there. We were pointing all our flashlights to where the sound was coming from, but we could not identify where it was originating. It's safe to say we were running up the hill at this point. We all got inside the house and locked the doors, then gathered into the central living room. Nobody wanted to leave for fear of what was outside. We all stayed up that night because the wall pounding was more violent than ever. Bam, 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 all night, like a ticking of some demonic clock. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that event. The sixth event, time lost. I was walking through the woods near the Bell Witch Cave. One moment it was completely sunny with blue skies, mid-afternoon. The next moment it was overcast and looked like it was 4 p.m. The seventh event, night terrors. Tortured dreams being held down and brutally drawn and quartered. Dreams of walking through the house and that void person placing their hand on my chest and pushing through my solar plexus. Body violently shaking in the dream like having a seizure. The eighth event visited the Bell House plantation marker in a tobacco field adjacent to my family's property. Brought friends to try and prove that something crazy was happening to my family. The rite of passage in the area is to go to the stone marker where the paranormal events happened hundreds of years ago. Then dance on the stone saying, "I don't believe in the Bell Witch." I got them to promise that they wouldn't do that while we went there. Of course, the moment we get there, one guy who doubted the legend in a massive way jumps up onto the stone marker and starts screaming, "I don't believe in the Bell Witch," as loud as he could. I got so upset with him. I'm the only one that knows the way back, so I said, "Come on guys, we're leaving." In this area, it's known as the Tennessee River Valley, so there is tons of flowing water around these tobacco fields. The reason this is important is because of what happened next. We were making good time walking back across the crop field, hundreds of yards long. A mist started rolling in from the river bends and begins to saturate the field. The temperature drops easily 25 degrees or so, and we begin to see our breath. I began to smell sulfur in the breeze. As the mist became a fog, it began. I started hearing this wheezy and deep, cavernous sounding breath around us, like being inside of a cave that was breathing. Out of nowhere, we started hearing these giant blasting sounds, and I realized something was walking on the chopped tobacco stalks. Side note, when they harvested tobacco, they used a machete to cut down at a 45-degree angle, leaving about 3.5 feet of brittle stalk poking out of the ground. Now, when you step on said stalks, they disintegrate in a very loud way as they burst apart. This starts happening all around us like an army of native spirits running around as if we are in a bandwagon battle. The blasts coming from every single direction in the fog. That's when I heard it. That deep cavernous noise turns into this giant sniffing sound, like some Lovecraftian beast smelling its prey just out of sight. At this point, I yell run in pure panic mode. We take off across the field, trying not to trip and be skewered by the stalks. They're dried out, and they get real sharp when they're harvested. Also, Robertson County is the world's largest producer of tobacco per square mile, so these fields are everywhere. Fun fact. As we are exiting the field and our feet hit the gravel road, the lower center part of my back suddenly explodes in agony. I look down and there's a massive rock lying at my feet, and I realized that I had just been assaulted. By the time I got to my house and examined my back in the mirror, the bruise was about the size of a basketball and was already turning black. The last event, well, the last large event. Woke up outside about 3 in the morning. I was lying next to the 4 gravestones on the property. The night was awfully cold, but I woke up soaked in sweat. We lived there for so long that I have many events to share, process, and would be willing to have discussions about my time there. It's really hard for me to talk about this stuff without re-traumatizing myself, but my friends and family are encouraging me to share my experiences with like-minded people, so I can try and find peace surrounding my trauma. I've also reached out to this person to see if they'd be willing to come on and share their events while living in the Bell Witch area. I told them that it is a safe place to share and that they would probably receive a lot of positive feedback on hopefully helping them heal with the trauma that they endured while living there. Let's keep our fingers crossed on that one, because I think that'd be really a very interesting upload. Today's third experience on the paranormal side. A little bit of preface first. I read from a young age about the paranormal, which was what I usually went for. I may have been intrigued, but skepticism was healthy because I never really experienced anything I couldn't possibly debunk. But people talking about it all over the world made me think there must be something to it. Now, in my early 30s, my cousin and I and some friends became amateur ghost hunters. Cheap fun, but yeah, we did catch some things on camera that went into the area of something above the normal, but nothing very definitive. Until one night I was driving home at about 4:15 in the morning through a mountainous valley area outside of New Haven, Connecticut. It was a state route, and on one side the mountain had been blasted through for the road, making a rock wall. On the other side was a ravine with a cabled guardrail. Sober and awake close to home. Then I saw movement coming from the rock wall and brush at the bottom of it to start to walk into the road. Immediately I knew it's gotta be a deer. A lot of deer around the area, so I slow and I'm about to hit the horn, which always works to scare them off, instead of catching them in the lights. Foot off the gas, car slowing down, I get very confused, because it never resolves into being a deer or taking shape of a deer, just a charcoal gray swirl. The outline of it's charcoal gray, like a static from an old TV tube. Its center was black as ink, no shape of arms or legs or head, just an upright form. I wasn't afraid or felt any fear. I was just perplexed. The car is still slowing down, then eyes turned up and towards me, silvery, white, and long. The only distinction I can honestly say I saw was that they seemed to get wider, as if I caught it unaware. In the briefest moment, it slipped over the rail and went down into the ravine. I glanced that way, then I just put the pedal down and went home. What's the strangest part of it, I think, spooky as it was, I should have been telling everybody about it. But that was almost 20 years ago now, and another state from where I live. But I told nobody until now, and going on YouTube, hearing about Wendigos and Native American witches, all of a sudden the memory comes back and nothing about it for so long. Don't believe me, you'd have to see it as I did. This is for people that may have seen something like that. I don't believe in things they talk about in creepypastas, but I definitely have a notion of what I saw that night. And that, my friends, is a person that I can have a conversation with. They obviously did their homework because, as a lot of you know, Native American side that I have in me, I have studied a lot of spooky stuff about Mohawk, Algonquin culture, the First Nation. And a lot of you know I get perturbed when people say I was chased by a Wendigo in North Carolina, or I saw a Wendigo in Texas, and it had deer horns. And of course the movie Antlers and Wendigo and this and that has just completely irked me. And I just described recently what a Wendigo is, according to elders on the Aquasachie Reservation, Hogansburg, New York. In a museum up there, there's a beautiful painting, and I've said it maybe 2 or 3 times, probably 4 or 5, I don't know. But it's a depiction of a Wendigo, and it's an emaciated human being, or it's a large white Sasquatch-looking creature with a tail and long canine-like teeth. Or it is a mist, a wind in the trees, a whisper. And this guy is right on, man, how he described it and caught it. But the thing is it's in Connecticut. So I'm going to have to look into that. I'm going to actually call a relative of mine on the res and ask him. But it's cool. It's definitely cool. It's piqued my interest. It has piqued my interest, my friends. Let's end the paranormal side with this one. I grew up in a very small town in Texas after moving there from Sacramento when I was 10. When we got here, my family looked at about 6 different homes before deciding on a big old yellow house, which I instantly hated and voted aggressively against. Growing up in California, I don't remember anything paranormal happening to me, but in this big yellow house, I've had a couple that still stress me out. When we moved in, I got one of the 2 bedrooms downstairs, other than the master that my parents slept in across the living room, and both my sisters slept upstairs. There were 3 main events that caused me to move rooms. The first event, I had an electric keyboard that I would try and mess around with against the wall in my room. My bathroom was just outside. One weekend, me and my youngest sister were home alone, and I was brushing my teeth. My sister would often go into my room, to my annoyance, and play my keyboard. So when I heard notes coming from my room, I assumed it was her. I put my toothbrush down and poked my head in, yelling out. But when I looked in there, there was no one in there. And I saw one key pop up, and the red lights of the keyboard just shut off, right in front of me. No one could have left my room without walking right past my bathroom, but regardless, I ran into the living room to see my little sister chilling on the couch, watching TV. No idea what was happening. The second event, every night I would sleep with Cartoon Network or Nick at Night on low volume and leave the remote on my nightstand. Well, one night I woke up to the TV blaring the sound of a woman's voice. I instinctively thought I left my remote in the bed and I laid on it, so I started feeling around for it. Nowhere. After a second, I fully woke up and looked at the TV. It was an image of a triangle with 3 beer bottles pointing outward at each angle. A woman's voice was telling a story, something along the lines of, I ran and ran, faster and faster, or something. I looked at the nightstand and the remote was gone. I went into hell no mode and ran to my parents' room, woke them up and dragged them back to my room. Volume was back to low. George Lopez was on and my remote sat perfectly on my nightstand. The final straw. I've got a walk-in closet to the right of my bed, and my room was usually a mess, so I could never close it all the way because straight clothes or something. Anyway, one night I woke up to a thud or a crack or something. It didn't startle me, just woke me. I was barely half awake, then a second thud sat me straight up. My eyes were blurry, but I looked to the left corner across from where my bed was, where I had heard the noise. There in the top corner against the ceiling was what I can only describe as a 3D shadow. Not humanoid, more spider-like. Dimensional but featureless. I didn't see eyes, but I really felt like it was looking right at me. Then, very calmly, it began crawling across the ceiling. Mind you, I'm awake. Over my bed, toward my closet. It squeezed its body through the crack into the door, into the darkness. And if there had been any doubt it was just my eyes, dark spots, I watched the door move from its force. I ran to my parents and refused to sleep there for the rest of my childhood. No idea what it was. Ideas are welcomed.
There you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed this bonus upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.